Hello, welcome to Good Games Well Played, episode 152. I'm Clint, aka JCM. With us this week is Isli
You.
and Messiah.
Hello.
It could be a short one. I got a hard cutoff later. But we'll just go ahead and jump straight into it. Deviation Games, I don't know if you remember this group. It was formed by Call of Duty Zombies mode creator Jason Blundell and Dave Anthony, who's a Treyarch veteran. And they created the studio. They're going to make like a big game, big ambitious game. And then they ended up partnering with Sony back in, they formed in 2021. I forget exactly when they announced the partnership with Sony for funding and exclusivity, but they're shutting down. They said, quote, "It is with a heavy heart that we announce the closure of Deviation Games. I want to express my deepest gratitude to our entire team." This is from the Chief HR and Operations Officer, Christy Stull. Apologies. "Thank you for all your hard work, dedication, and contributions to Deviation. I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to have worked with each and every one of you. To the entire video game industry, we'll be hosting a networking event and would love for any and all companies and studios hiring to participate. Please reach out to me directly, yada, yada." But yeah, because like this was in that time when Sony was really like there was like Jade Raymond when she started her studio, and then Sony, of course, they're working together. Deviation was another one. Like there's all these studios who were independent but with big people behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And Sony was like, "Yeah, we'll partner with you guys." So I'm curious in this case because it was obviously funding for the game. Like if it just because they talked a big game, no pun intended, saying like it was going to be like this huge ambitious title. Like they knew it was going to be ambitious. So I'm just wondering if like they bit off more than they can chew in this instance. And Sony was like, "I'm sorry, you just don't have enough work to show for your efforts that we just can't afford to keep funding you." And obviously being independent, they couldn't fund themselves. That's why they partnered with Sony. And I guess like, could you not partner with someone else? Like, was that in the cards? Like, could they go to like EA or Microsoft or someone, you know what I mean?
It's maybe one of those things where it's like that's just the nice way of saying that the game was coming along really poorly. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's hard, but it's like maybe it also just wasn't worth partnering with someone else for them.
I get, but they like it's not even like, hey, we broke up our deal with Sony. It's like we're just shutting down. So I'm like, clearly you didn't have the funds. I mean, obviously you didn't have the funds to begin with because like you were just two devs from, who worked on Call of Duty and other people. It's like I don't know how much cash flow you had to contribute to your studio's growth and hiring and whatnot. So how much liquidity you know what I mean did you have? Like if you're like you always hear about teams to come together. It's like I'm sure they have some money if they were big high ups in the studio that they worked at, saying like get a jump start. And the idea is you want to pitch an idea, a game, come up with something to then pitch to a publisher to help back you. So it's like, it's like the startups in Silicon Valley who are like, "Oh, we'll try to make something that can get bought out by someone else." So I'm just curious, like, yeah, was it? And it's so often that we see tech demos and behind the scenes footage of games that were in development. I'm wondering if we'll see any of that with this. Like, did they have anything after all these years?
Yeah, like literally anything, or was it just the entire game was kind of just not coming along and there was nothing to show for it?
Yeah, it's because they were revealed in June 2021, so it wasn't too long ago. But they said this is from a quote from them from Blundell saying quote, "We're drawing on what we've learned on our collective decades making games, but we're also out to make something fresh and brimming with innovation like you've never experienced before. We're not afraid to say that our ambitions are super high. We're setting out to make a huge content-rich game with a focus on a lot of action, a lot of energy, but let's leave it at that for now, and hopefully it won't be long before we can share more." So it just seems like, yeah, like if the industry was in a healthier place and you think like, oh, we can afford to take some more time to go huge and ambitious, then it's like, and then of course the ramifications of who knows what, people overhiring most likely, and then all these layoffs. So it's just you get caught in it. But yeah, I'm curious what they did have. It always sucks because you want to see new IP, even if it's something that you don't like or it just turns out it's like okay. It's like at least it's there. Like it's nice to see new IP. And then the other bit of small news before we jump into the main topic is there's going to be a Watch Dogs live action adaptation in the works, which I thought was already announced years ago. So when I saw it, I was like,
Is it,
okay.
Wait, hold on. Was that not like something that was announced when Watch Dogs like The original game was announced?
I don't remember if it was when the original came out, but
Or
I
am I
feel like it
mixing
was
up
one of
Watch
those
Dogs and Quantum Break, maybe?
like Ubisoft. I feel like a lot of Ubisoft games. We had Prince of Persia with Jake Gyllenhaal. And, like I felt like we had a lot of games or like movie ideas because around that same time was like Uncharted. When it first took off way back when. So it was like I think it might have been like, oh, there was a lot of stuff in the works, and maybe there was, and then it just got scrapped, kind of like it just got shelved, like we can't make it work. But I feel like, and this is a franchise you could easily put in a movie that doesn't have to do anything with the games because the games are just be in the universe. Like all the games take place in separate areas of different people. They do have like DLCs where you might hear
It's
about or
you just
see
need
the
like
main
a cop
character.
show.
Not even like I'm surprised they didn't do this back when like Mr. Robot was big, like which I never watched, but I know like that was a huge show for a while, and I feel like you could have done
Yeah, Mr.
Watch
Robot
Dogs.
is pretty appropriate. I was also thinking like The Wire or something like that, where if you went like a different direction of stuff, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that would really work. It'd be super easy.
Yeah, and like they could, they could set it anywhere they want. They can and just have it be like, I mean, all you have to do is have essentially a police state and then a group of people who just don't like it. We're always trying to take them down. I mean, that's what Watch Dogs Legion was. You're in London, and it was just crazy stuff leading up to it. That was very much like, oh, all these events that transpired were all fabricated by the government for control. Very much V for Vendetta in that aspect. But yeah, it's like you could easily do it, and it's going to be starring. What's her name? I'm sorry, I need to look this up. Sophie Wilde. They were in Talk to Me, that horror movie. I don't know if you watched that one. It's with the hand. You touch the hand. Did you see that film?
Nope.
No, I don't even know what you're talking about.
It's an
And I
A24 horror movie. It's like a bunch of kids. They have like this hand, and there's like this mummified hand. And the idea is like you touch it and you link to the other side, and like you get possessed by the dead. And all these kids, it's like a drug for them because they get like this insane euphoria from it. So it's like that's the premise:
I
is they all get together and they do that, but you can only do it for a minute. Don't do it any longer. And like
I
it's
feel
but
like
again horror.
this movie is literally just the movie Flatliners.
I've never seen
Yeah,
that
but
either.
they don't die. Like they just get possessed, and it's like I think you really
It's
like it. It's a good movie.
Flatliners is a movie about these people that try to see how long they can flatline for and like kill them
Right.
for themselves for to see
Yeah.
the other side, and then they get addicted to it, and it's like someone goes too far and flatlines for like 5 minutes. I think he dies, maybe.
Yeah, I guess
Uh,
similar
but,
vibes, but
but like it sounds like you're describing that except with possession.
yeah, I guess it's similar. It's possession, but short time limit, and then yeah, it's just
Uh,
it's the party drug that they do.
Flatliners is a fun movie. It's not good by any means, but it's one of those like campy I think it was 80s, but it's like one of those campy 80s movies that is definitely worth watching on like a Friday night if you're just like, I need to watch something shitty that takes itself seriously but is not serious and thus will make me laugh.
It is being directed by Matthew Turi, a French filmmaker, soundboard director, and Christy LeBlanc is writing. But I'm not familiar with any of their work. They don't cite their stuff here, unfortunately, which is annoying because they cite the actress and what they did, but they don't talk about the filmmakers. Um, yeah, that's unfortunate. 'Cause I'd like to know like what did they do? Because if it's a French director, like maybe it will be in London, um, so where Legion was. But yeah, I feel like you could easily do something interesting, and it could be like a good movie, not like a oh this is insane, but like a good movie. Like there's nothing wrong with just being good. Like Sonic is good, like it's a good movie. Mario's okay, but it's like that's fine to have good. You don't have to have insane, but yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, the main thing from this week that happened was the Microsoft partner showcase that they did. I have a list of I don't know if either of you watched it or watched any trailers from it.
I read the follow-up conversations about it, but I didn't watch it.
Oh, you should watch it, or at least
I
watch the
haven't watched it.
trailers. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff that was shown. There was a game called Unknown Nine Awakening. That looks pretty interesting. It's got kind of like kind of Assassin's Creed vibes. And I think it's like if I'm thinking of the right one, I can't play it because it'll play through the thing. But it seems like you're also kind of manipulating the like space and time as well. Like you kind of like freeze time, move stuff around. It's pretty interesting third person stuff. That looked really interesting. That doesn't say here on this article. It's from a Reflector and Bandai Namco. It's a body hopping adventure. It's arrived in summer 2024. It doesn't say if it's what other platforms in this article, because some of these aren't not all exclusive to Xbox. They're they're partner showcases, so they're coming out on Xbox, PC, and some also on PS5. But it doesn't say for this one. I think Unknown 9 is also coming out on PlayStation. I have to remember which one showed up in my YouTube feed after the fact, because Sony releases their own little trailers on their channel. Then there was a game called Sleight of Hand from Riff Raff Games. This is interesting. It's kind of like it's a hard-boiled detective noir thing, but you're a witch and you use cards to like cast spells and stuff, like kind of like Gambit, but with magic cards essentially. Very, and the person who's doing it said like they're very inspired by like Metal Gear. So I'm really interested to see like, okay, is it going to be kind of like a, you have your detective noir kind of stuff, but you're a witch, but you obviously probably can't tell anybody that you are, so you don't want that known. But it's also got kind of like sneaking stuff, and it could be like a deck builder style game where like you get a random set of cards in your on each run, whatever level you're doing, and like you just have to navigate that level with whatever cards you've got.
Have been some good uh, deck building games that break the mold of like what a deck building game is recently. Like, or card games that I guess break the mold of like playing cards at a table kind of thing. Like Inscription was really good at that. Slay the Spire kind of did that as well, of changing up the formula. And then there was that Switch, the Switch like 3D platformer that was like part 3D platformer, part shooter, part deck building game.
What?
Oh, I'm gonna blank on this. It was really popular. I'm googling it.
Yeah, you'll have to Google that and tell us. But yeah, this is more like Marvel's Midnight Suns, where like you're playing and the cards are just some extra action. You think like, I think it's in third person. Let's see.
Neon White.
Yeah, Neon White.
Oh.
Yeah, Sleight of Hand. Sleight of Hand.
I thought that was only on PC.
It's on Switch and PlayStation now.
Oh.
Yeah, it's been out for a bit. But yeah, it's like it's pretty cool. You should check it out. Like it seems like, again, it's a third-person stealth action game. They also call it like hard-boiled third-person stealth. So it seems like I like the idea because someone brought up a good point when I was listening to a podcast saying how like a lot of the kind of spells and whatnot that they showcase that the Switch does kind of reminds me a little bit of Dishonored. But then they kind of brought up that point where in Dishonored, if you're playing stealthy, it's kind of like you just, once you get the powers you need, you just rely on those the entire time. So the idea of like not being beholden to just one and having to deal with a randomization of abilities that you have as this witch when you're trying to stealth around, like seems really cool. Like maybe you can have like, smoke magic, other maybe teleportation magic, stuff like that. So who knows? But I like the idea like, oh, I got to get through this level. I don't have that one spell I really like, so I got to play it a little different. It'd be like, Metal Gear. It's like, oh, I don't have the tranquilizer. I have to do something else, or a chaff grenade or whatever. It's like, I got to figure out another way to do this. So I kind of like that idea. It sounds really cool. It's looks like it's only coming to PC and Xbox, but I'll have to keep an eye on that. Maybe I'll just play on PC. But that looks fun. Again, it wasn't a gameplay trailer, so we'll have to wait and see how the gameplay actually looks. It was just an announcement trailer, but the idea of it sounds interesting. It sounds like a cool concept. And then the other one that came out that I saw that looked really cool is called The Altars. This is like you're on an alien planet in space as this like lone person, and you're trying to explore. And there's like survival aspects, so you got to like collect stuff, but you also got to like stay out of the sun. I guess like temperature's probably insane, so you have this mobile base that you can build. It's a giant wheel essentially. It's nice that they do that, because then the way the base is designed, it's like it's very much square rooms. So it's like, okay, you got this grid base you can put together like Fallout Shelter, but you're confined to the giant wheel. But then the camera can go to that 2D view as you navigate your base. But as you expand, you can't do things on your own, so you make copies of yourself with this alien technology. But they're not just copies like the Swapper, or I won't say the other game. It's like alternate versions of the main character. So like if they made different life choices, it's like, oh, this version of me made these choices, so they're really good at science. So they'll be like my science person, this person will be this, my gardener, whatever, this have you. But then because of that, it's also a colony management sim. So it's like you have to keep each person happy, kind of similar to like I guess Frostpunk, that's very like macro level. Like, do we do this or do we do that? You have this and that, but you have like competing versions of yourself being like, hey, we should focus on this, and the other one saying, no, we should focus on this. But you got to keep them happy in order to do their functions. If you watch the trailer for it, it looks really cool. That seems really good. It's coming to PC, Xbox Series, consoles. I think that one's also coming to PlayStation. I have to double check, but that looks. I thought that because that's like not. It's also a gameplay trailer. It's not just a CG trailer. So that one looks pretty cool. I like that one.
Imagine like having to argue with yourself over what to do for the day.
Yeah, there's like one where like one of the characters they show is like they made their marriage work. Like it's a version of you that made the marriage work. So then like they're always saying like, no, you need to, like telling you that you need to like what was the example? Like, give a little more and like work on your persuasion. Yeah, just like your relationships with these other characters more, and like try to push you to do that because like they made it work and you didn't because you're just a piece of shit. No,
God.
but
There's so much to unpack
like,
here.
You can't
but yeah, it's
tell me what to do. It's like I can't tell you what to do. I am you. It's like, oh, but no.
Yeah, and it's cool. And of course, each character looks different because obviously they would have different facial hair patterns, and not patterns, but like shape in a different way, different hairstyles. But I like that idea. That seems really cool. But I'm curious, like, okay, if you're making them, are you pulling them out of their timeline and their reality, or are you just making a copy and the alien tech does all this to where like if they die or leave, it's like, does it really matter? Like I want to talk about like in the Swapper, like it doesn't matter. You're doing it to create puzzle to solve puzzles. But like in other games, it's like it's very much part of the narrative. So I'm curious what the kind of negative repercussions are for perhaps losing one. But because like your goal is to get off the planet, but like they don't necessarily have that same goal. Like you're the one who got here. But anyway, that one looks really cool. They also had a game called Creatures of Ava. That was there. The Sinking City 2 got announced.
Man, didn't that game go through like whole IP issues and like theft issues or something?
Yeah, I think there was some like they must have settled that problem because it does sound familiar. Like, oh, there was an issue with the first game, but
yeah, I don't know if it was the first game or like a different Cthulhu game because I know a few came out at the same time, but I'm surprised they're making a sequel because I thought that game kind of got caught up in like litigation hell.
I also don't remember it doing that well. Like it came out, I think it got like it kind of okay. It got like good reviews, like 7, but it's like, and I was interested in it for a bit, but I was like, when I watched, I was like, yeah, I don't think I'll play this right now. But now that it got a sequel, I'm like, maybe I should. I don't know. Like
Like
go
it was
back
a
and play
cult fave or something.
Cult following, no pun intended, with the Cthulhu stuff. But yeah, it's like big fans with people who follow certain elder gods. But yeah, it's just like it's always interesting when a sequel comes out to a game you didn't think did numbers. It's like just a silent hit. Like no one else talked about it, but I guess gamers must have played a bunch of it and purchased it a lot. But maybe the dev cost for the first game wasn't that high, so like they sold just enough to make the sequel. But yeah, it's that got announced. That was a pretty big surprise. Then of course they had a trailer for FF14 online for Xbox. Saying, hey, it's coming out the 21st of March. You can go ahead and Game Pass Ultimate players will be able to claim the starter edition perks from the 21st of March to the 19th of April. So I guess if you're a Game Pass Ultimate player, you get like some extra bonuses. Then there was just a couple of things. The Stalker Legends of the Zone trilogy that got announced that showed up before the showcase as well. Then there was like a Monster Jam Showdown, Persona 3 Reload expansion pass, the first Berserker Kazan got shown, and then Frostpunk 2 got a release date that's going to be coming out on the 25th of July. So I'll be looking forward to Frostpunk. I know it's coming to PC. It's also going to be on PC Game Pass day one, but I'm curious how quickly it's going to come to consoles because I think it took a while. I can't open the trailer. It took a while for it to come to release, like after a couple of the DLCs before it came to PS4, the original. But I'm looking forward to Frostpunk 2. That'll be a lot of fun. And then there was Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess was the other game that was shown. But yeah, pretty interesting spread of games at their showcase. Like I thought it was a good show. Like it seemed like it had something for everyone. And like I said, I was like Unknown 9, Sleight of Hand, and The Altars were like 3 games that had me super interested in, in their titles. And then so it's like, hey, if I can come away from a partner showcase with, more than one title that looks interesting to me, I'm all about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'd definitely say check out those trailers just because it, maybe they'll, I don't know if necessarily Ultras will be your style of game. You don't necessarily play colony sims, I don't think. But maybe the exploration survival aspect of it could be interesting. But yeah, check out Sleight of Hand.
Each time you say that, I keep thinking you're saying Ultros, the Metroidvania that just came out.
That's right. Dread it. But yeah, give them a shot. They look fun. Yeah, that was kind of the big stuff from this week. I'm trying to see if I had anything else that was kind of tagged on here. Did there wasn't any other giant thing. Nintendo didn't do anything this week, did they? Was that last week?
I mean, Microsoft had that whole speech where they talked about the future of Xbox again, which was kind of what we've been talking about, or we talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago. They reiterated that they're not sure that consoles are the future, and they're not seeing a growing market, and are proposing the idea of an Xbox app with all of their games for cloud gaming as opposed to a console.
Well, that's right. You sent me that. It was an interview. It looks like with Peter Moore.
It's something that like they've been talking about for probably 20 years though, but it's going to be like the inevitable switch eventually of having a desktop console towards having cloud gaming or just on your TVs or something like that, and you download the Xbox app or the Sony app, which is weird, but I hope they always make a console in the background somehow.
Yeah, it's weird that they interviewed Peter Moore about it. I mean, because he's not part of Microsoft, but obviously he has, a big history in the games industry. But it was weird that's the one thing when I saw it, I thought it was going to be someone else like from like Matt Booty or someone from Microsoft versus just.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just all like speculation towards what many people have been saying for a long while, and they just haven't figured out when internet and infrastructure and TVs and everything will be good enough to make that switch happen.
Yeah, because I know obviously Moore was president of Sega America, so he was there when the Dreamcast died and they went third party, so he has that experience there. But he oversaw the 360, of course, as the boss of Xbox. But so he has history with them. But yeah, it's and he joined EA. Yeah, interesting speculation, which makes sense. I mean, as someone who was part of a company that ended up going third party, like Sega, it's like, okay, I can see it. But yeah, interesting article. Definitely check it out. IGN has it. It's the Microsoft will be debating right now whether Xbox consoles have a future, says Peter Moore. It's from the 8th.
It was a good little article and transcript of the interview. It was interesting. Whether or not it's the most relevant at the moment, it's at least interesting.
Yep. All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump over to what we've been playing. I know we'll go ahead and start with Zai. Zai, I haven't seen you. I've been playing much this week?
I've been playing Rebirth all week.
I haven't seen you on. I haven't seen Discord. Hasn't said it. Has it been?
I don't have it hooked up to Discord.
Oh, okay. That's why. I was like, I thought it was so strange. I'm like, man, Zai's not playing anything. it's like that's why.
No,
how far? What chapter are you in?
That's a good question. I didn't even know there were chapter numbers until I was looking through Twitch and people were saying that they were on certain chapters, and I went, oh, that's weird, because it doesn't do like at least that I've noticed, like, oh, new chapter, this is the chapter name. It's kind of like appears when you do the save file or whatever, but I usually do it so quickly I skip out.
Yeah, it'll be like when like chapter 2 starts, like the camera just kind of pans down and then text on the screen just says chapter 2. Like it doesn't like go it doesn't make a big show of it like chapter 2.
Yeah, it does it while like a cutscene is playing. So I'm either reading the subtitles or I'm watching the cutscene. But I'm not very far into it. I just left Junon. So
okay, you're farther than I am.
Yeah, I just did like all of that basically, and I'm pretty sure the next thing that I'm doing is going to drop me into Costa del Sol. But yeah, that's as far as I am. I haven't done a lot of I did most of the side stuff in Junon, and then the grasslands I still have a few things to do, but I'm gonna save all of that till like later. I have issues with that crap.
So how are you does it get, because I'm only like I haven't made any progress. I just got to chapter 2, so I did like all the flashback conversation with Cloud coming back to with dealing with Sephiroth and all this stuff, and then it's so annoying because then Tifa's like, Cloud, can I talk to you? And you go like outside your room, you go on the roof, and she says, where the hell were you? And it's like the conversation's basically done, and then you have to go back down to your room. Like, why did we waste time coming out here?
The game is full of that shit. Full of it.
Because like in the OG, it would do like the same time, it'd be like, hey, I need to talk to you. Fade to black, fade info black. They're like on top of, the water tower or something. They're somewhere else talking, and then it fades to black. But I guess you can't do that in modern games anymore. So it's like everything has to be, you can't take the player away. You got to be able to walk from where they say to where they need to will go and go back. And I'm like, why do we waste our time?
But the only thing I can think is that like it's kind of a pivotal moment that you walk out of the door and it's like, oh, this is calm, and you can kind of just look around and you can see stuff in like the background and stuff like that. But if you don't, it's not like it doesn't pan around and it doesn't like direct the player to look around and everything like that. I guess it's just like a kind of nostalgia thing to be like, oh, look, then you can see the city from up here and blah blah blah. It's kind of really cool. But no, the game is full of that kind of shit, like the time waster stuff. Oh. It's just, once you get out into like the open world and start doing the side stuff, you're gonna lose your fucking mind at all the little literal time waster shit that's like, why are you taking control away from me right now kind of stuff. It's just like, it's full of it, and that's why I haven't done a lot of the side stuff. I'm just like, I don't want to do it. I just want to go on with the story. I want to see like the big beat moments that are in my memory. I want to see those as the remake. I don't need all this other extra crap that you're doing for absolutely no reason.
And I think that's the downfall of it being like, because I haven't played it much, and like part of that too is because like I know what's going to happen, but I know there's going to be some variances, but like I'm not really wanting to do, because I know the story, like the side stuff. Like typically in video games, I do the side stuff because I like the world. I want to like max out my character, or I just like, I want to stay in that world longer, like Assassin's Creed or, whatever game is like, okay, I'll just do all this side stuff because it's fun and, unlock more gear, this and that. But this, I'm like, I kind of want to skip all that. But then I've heard stories of people say like, oh, well, if you don't do the side stuff, you can get really hit with difficulty spikes later. And it's like, you have to do some of it, yada, yada, and this and that. Or like the Queen's Blood game. It's like, if you don't do that, you have to do it later. You're like mandatory. But then if you didn't play it, you don't have unlocks, so it makes it harder and yada yada. And so I'm like, and it's a fine card game. I did the tutorial. I'm like, okay, I see what this is. Like, it seems very straightforward. It's not as involved as like the game in Horizon Forbidden West, which I played quite a bit. But it's like that's much more involved than this is. Just like it's very much Gwent, but kind of tamed down.
It gets
like
a little bit more involved the further in you get with different cards and stuff. They have different effects and stacking and stuff like that. But yeah, it takes a while to get that point. And I will say there is a moment later on where the card game is part of like the main quest kind of thing. But they play it off as optional. So it's like you don't have to win. But I will say I've bought 4 card packs maybe. I've played maybe 2 matches of it, so I'm still rank 1, and I cleared the main quest thing up to like rank 5. So it's like you can, if you build the right deck and you kind of like maybe like start over every now and then to try to get like a better pull, if the match isn't going your way kind of thing, you don't have to grind it to get to that point. You can absolutely like brute force your way through it. And if you don't want to brute force your way through it, they give you an out. They're like, hey, you could just not do this if you don't want to. And you just be like, okay, I don't want to do this. So
I wonder if difficulty affects it, because right now I'm just like, I have it on story because I'm like, I just want to see the story in the game. So because I don't care about the combat still. Like, it's so, I was talking to my cousin about it, I'm like, the combat's fine. I just wish it was more like, because they add that classic mode where you can, things slow down, whatever. But I'm like, could we not just bring back the gambit system from 12? Like, I just let me do macro controls of my characters, because I feel like at least that, because then the skill is more like,
the gambit
did you set the AI right?
12 was so underrated.
Yeah.
That's a system that like I hated when it was released, and like as a kid, I hated the Gambit system. But now that Final Fantasy is shifting towards this new style, yeah, I went back and played 12, and I'm like, the Gambit system was fucking brilliant. You controlled your like AI characters and created rules for them to follow. It was brilliant.
Right, because like if you're not going to have the traditional old school style, which is fine, don't do it. You make it active. That's great. But then I'm like, I don't want to have to switch between all the characters or hit the button to give them a command to do this. Like I'm just like, this isn't. It's not engaging enough for me personally. I'm like, I just don't like this. That's like that's why I like in the chapter 1, like I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna switch to cloud. I'll just be Sephiroth the whole time, just kill everybody. But it's just like, oh, do you like if you had it on hard, like okay, you got to make sure you do the assess, and then but you can't do that until you have your gauge up to be able to do it, and then okay, find out what they're weak to. Okay, then do that thing, and it's like I just don't have time. This like let me automate it through gambits, and then that's where the skill comes in. Like because at least in 12, it's like okay, you can set it up like that to where you have your character does his thing, whomever you're. Like I think you only control Vaughn the whole time, but it's like at least everybody else is doing kind of what you tell them to based on percentages, and then if you need to, you can kind of step and be like, "Uh-oh, let me manually make them cast this spell or do something." Things a little tough, but it makes all the other portion of it like more enjoyable because like I mean auto battlers are huge now, and it's like that's the skill is did you set your party up for success or not with, and then you unlock more gambits as you go along that give you unique stuff to make your characters do and the thing like if this then that, and I like that kind of stuff. But it's just like I'm not huge on the combat in 7 right now. I'm just like nah, that's still just
I'm
blah.
I'm worried about your enjoyment of this game when all the reviews I've read have been like, the combat is the best part. You're gonna love the combat. It's the best combat.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
And none of them are like, the story's good. They're all like, the story's garbage, but the combat and world are great.
This oh my god. The combat is so they do give you a little bit of like a Gambit-esque out, I guess, in the form of materia. So they give you like an auto
Autocast.
ability use materia. They have like a follow-up materia, and they have like an autocast materia. The downside is that you have to link those materia to something else. So if you have gear on a character that you're not playing that has no linked slots, you can't use it. It's totally useless except for like the auto ability thing. So it kind of does that a little bit, but so I'm playing on normal mode but with the classic version, and I really really prefer that because it lets you switch back and forth. So if you take control of the character and you physically move them around and attack and dodge and everything like that, you can play like that. But if you stop your inputs for about a second, maybe a second and a half, it'll go back to auto. So it's kind of a good balance. Whereas like if you feel like it's going too slow or you're just doing like farming or fighting stuff that's too low level, you can go in and just blast everything and mash the button and everything like that. Or if you're in a state of just like waiting for the ATB to charge, and I use it as like, okay, I want to see what this enemy is doing, primarily for like boss fights and stuff like that. Like how aggressive are they? What are their attack patterns and stuff? And then once you start to get that, it's also good for like when you're mid battle and everything's kind of like built up already, your characters will continue to attack in like a better fashion while you're doing menuing and stuff like that. So you have a little bit of leeway to like, it's not just like a mash button kind of thing and dodge. You can also like do your menuing and set up your other characters and stuff like that. But it also does give you like I like playing as Aerith because to me she has the best like a tactical gameplay, I guess, where she has skills where you can use a few of your ATB charges to set her up, and then she's just a complete beast basically, as long as you have like the right materias and stuff on her, and she just absolutely rips through some bosses with like, there's like a ward you can get where anybody casting magic in it is invincible while they're casting, and she can like double cast and stuff like that and drain MP. So she's just like a total beast if you get it all set up right and you have a long enough fight to take advantage of it. The only thing that I dislike about it, I feel like, is if I'm playing as Cloud and I also have Red 13 in my party and we're just kind of like, battling and stuff like that. If I switch to Aerith, suddenly she's just like bombarded by everything and she's taking every hit and I can't do anything. And I'm just like, is there some kind of weird hate system where it's like misbalanced to whatever character you're controlling at the time? Because I finally have this character set up and now she can't do anything because she's getting like multi-attacked at every opportunity and just getting knocked around and beat up. And I'm just like, okay, fine, I'll switch back to Cloud and I'll just like control her the other way. But she builds ATB so slow. I'm just like, I want to blast the things with my magic stick. So it's just like, what is happening? And I think there's like a provoke materia that I don't have, but I remember it being in intermission, and
yeah,
I was getting so annoyed one night. I was like, I just want to play as Aerith. Stop attacking me. Leave me alone.
Yeah. I'm sure I'll like, maybe I'll enjoy it later. Like when I do, like I didn't care about the first boss fight you do in chapter 1, so maybe I'll like it later when I get like some more people, maybe with like some more synergy, something. I'll tweak around with it. But just like that hack and slash, like hit the button DMC style, like I'm not about that anymore. Like I think I told my cousin, I think it's because the Souls games have kind of ruined it, that kind of style of combat for me, because I'm like, I prefer combat with consequence, where it's like I gotta focus even on the weak enemies. Like they can fuck you, they can mess you up, if you make a mistake. So it's like I like that more engaging style of combat, but you can't really do that in this kind of game. And I think that's why I'm like, okay, well, like even like when I played like DMC 5, it was like, yeah, it was fine, but it's like I realized like, yeah, it's still not quite my thing. But I don't know. Maybe
Souls games definitely killed a lot of action game combat for me, because my interest in action games basically went from I either want it to be consequential like the Souls games, or I want it to be over the top ridiculous like Devil May Cry. And I want nothing in between those two spectrums anymore. If it's not grueling and hard or over the top ridiculous, it is not appealing to me for an action game.
Right. It's like, give me Bloodborne or give me Metal Gear Rising. I don't want anything in between.
Yeah, and it's because it's like I want either serious or I want arcadey. Yeah. And sometimes you get these games that are like somewhere in between, and I'm just kind of like, it's fine. I wish it was more in this direction. Like Final Fantasy 16. I'm losing track of numbers. I enjoyed the combat in that a lot, but like I definitely kept thinking, yeah, this is in the middle. I wish it went further in either direction. Either make it more arcadey or more soulsy with more consequences.
They do introduce some things that make it a little bit more like tactical, kind of engaging in that way, where there's more stuff that you have to pay attention to, like resources, I guess. So they do introduce that stuff, and they do introduce basically synergy with different party members.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's also tactical based on what stuff you've unlocked or what stuff you've learned or found or whatever, and your materia and your party makeup and like the way that they all work together, which is mildly useless to me because I feel like I want Aerith in my party all the time, just to, no reason in particular, but I feel like I just need to have her around a lot while I can. So she's like always in my party, so it's always Aerith and Cloud and somebody else. But
yeah, I think it's just because like 16, like I didn't mind the combat in that, but I think the issue here, it goes back to the fact that I know the original, so it's like I'm playing the same thing about knowing the story. It's like I know what the combat is because I played it back in '97, and it's like I have a memory of that system, and that's what I prefer for this game, which I don't have. And then, but like 16, it's like, okay, I can deal with it because like it's a new game, they're doing their thing, whatever. But yeah, this is just like my nostalgia for that old style is getting in the way. But we'll see if I get past that. Because I mean, even like the Resident Evil 2 remake, it's still Resident Evil. Like nothing really changes. It's like you still have very similar styles there. But yeah. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on because I'm watching time. I don't go too far. But
yeah, I know.
Isli, you've been playing Death Stranding. You said you made more progress.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still in chapter 3. It's minimal progress. I had a minor living on the West Coast and everything is humid scare last night when I realized there was mold on the wall that needed to be cleaned, which was disgusting and horrifying. Um, but Death Stranding, yeah. So my initial thoughts, like starting up Death Stranding, is it feels it feels far more uncomfortable playing Death Stranding than it does playing a typical fantasy game. And by that I mean like I'm so used to fantasy worlds, but most fantasy worlds still kind of follow that same mold of like medieval fantasy where it's like knights, magic, dragons, monsters, things like that, dungeons. And Death Stranding changes so much about expectations. Like it throws you into a world that is so different than what the tropes you're used to are. It takes a lot more getting used to, and not in a bad way. Just a like, this is the first game in a while that I've played that made me really have to pay attention to the world building to understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because like even Final Fantasy, like I'll use Final Fantasy 16 again. There's nothing really in Final Fantasy 16 that's like hard to understand. You get a few new concepts, but everything is based off of a framework that pretty similarly mimics like popular stories, popular fiction, everything like that. I mean, it kind of follows a Game of Thrones-esque political intrigue campaign. The world has pretty much medieval levels of technology and fantasy, and there's obviously some weirdness with summons, but that's kind of the only really different concept you're introduced to, and even that is still pretty similar to previous Final Fantasy games. Death Stranding, it's like they throw one concept at you and you're like, what is this? And then they explain that concept with like 4 new concepts. And I'm like, okay, but what are these 4 concepts you just used to explain this one concept I don't understand? Like, just I'll use the time fall because I think it's one of the easier ones to understand of like, okay, so visually you see that the time fall is like rain that rapidly ages you. I also know this from you talking about Death Stranding in the past. But then I'm laughing because the way they explain the time fall is they're like, yeah, it's caused by Carillium. And I'm like, well, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you're just like, oh, it's caused
Little
by this
density.
thing. What the fuck is this then?
Yep.
And I feel like that's pretty representative of like the entire game so far is that every new concept they get, they explain with 4 other things that you don't understand.
Mhm.
So
yeah, and
like
then they give you
re-
information about them piecemeal later on.
yeah, like repatriating and everything. They're
Mhm.
like he says like, "Oh, you're a repatriate." And then like granted like 5 minutes later, they show what that means of him being able to come back from the dead. But then the explanation of what repatriating is early in the game introduces like so many more questions because then you're like, well, why is he able to come back from the dead? What the fuck is this beach?
Mhm.
What is all of like so
Yeah.
every single time they provide an answer, it makes me want to pull out like a Wikipedia and make like a flow chart of like, what is this, what is this though?
Yeah. What's nice at least is as you connect more sections to the chiral network, like it unlocks. You're also bringing back uh, lost data, to because of the Death Stranding. So you,
Right.
you get all this information, and then you get hit with emails. And what's nice is like if you go to your emails and read them, the ones that have like bold, they have like color coded stuff to kind of give you like, hey, if you want to know about this, read this email. It tells you about BBs, or this one tells you about time for this one tells you about this. So it's like it's nice that you can get more of that there, and then outside of other explanations they might give you later. But it is really fun, kind of a replay it, knowing all the information
I
and seeing it from knowing what happens in the game and experiencing it again from the beginning.
I think my initial impression of the game is I'm enjoying it, and I do still kind of think that Hideo Kojima needs an editor. Like, it needs a better editor to just pare things down a little bit. Like, there's so much that I'm like, you are really good at coming up with concepts and a really interesting and weird world, and I'm enjoying the gameplay loop as I understand it so far. And holy shit, you just need an editor to be like, dude, you don't need to show this. You can cut this part out, or you can change this, and you won't lose anything in the game.
There are some. There's this one scene later on. I won't. Not really a spoiler, but like a character gets like uncomfortably close to Sam, and Sam like clearly doesn't like, because he doesn't like being touched.
Yeah.
But he also doesn't want to be too close to people. So it's like the dude, dead man's just right up in his face, like trying to tell him, something. It's so funny how uncomfortable Sam looks in that scene. But yeah, there's I do love that game.
Like,
though.
there's like little weird things that I find interesting choices for like the direction of the game. So, when you're in your home base room, the fact that you look around the room from a camera viewpoint that's behind Sam, and he doesn't get up and walk around the room, but instead it pivots around from like a point behind him, is just kind of like, but why? It's like why don't you get up and walk around the room, and or why isn't the camera positioned somewhere where half the screen isn't taken up by the back of your character?
Just they want that floating camera, like
Yeah, so it's like little
Mario 64.
weird things like that, and then
He's just got really, really good vision. He has the zoom function eyeballs.
Plus, then you can see him point to stuff when you're looking at it and be like, hey, check out that. Look at the action figures from that fight.
I don't like super understand the mechanics of like the hiking and walking so far. So it's basically like,
you hike and walk all the time.
well, I understand how to do it in real life, but I don't usually lose my balance the way he does. Like, holy fuck, what is wrong with you, sir?
Just hold the shoulder buttons, bruh. You ping your Odra deck so you can see how difficult the terrain is.
So you need to go hiking with me, and then you'll understand.
There you go.
But like, are you just supposed to hold the shoulder buttons the entire time? Is there a downside to just holding them down?
Yeah,
no, you move slower.
Oh.
If you hold, you won't go as quickly. So it's like if you're trying to run away from like BTs, as long as you don't have, it kind of comes down to how heavy of materials are you carrying.
Mm-hmm.
That'll throw off your balance, and then how difficult the terrain is. Like if the terrain is if it's blue, like very flat, you can just straight line it and just run, and you won't have any problems. But as soon as you go left or right, you might have an issue. Okay, but yeah, usually if you're climbing a mountain, like I'd be holding L2 R2 the whole time. Like also, I'm not doing that.
So something I've struggled with sort of is like the climb mechanic seems to not work sometimes. Like when you get the climb prompt and you hit it, and sometimes he like glitches up a little bit. So on an early spoiler mission, which cracked me up, when his mom, the president, dies, and you are tasked with carrying your dead mother's body, which is just like traumatic on so many levels that it's just kind of hilarious. I was trying to climb up something and it glitched out, so he falls backwards and he like crushes the mom, and he like freaks out and has a panic attack, and he's like, "Oh God, I'm so sorry. Oh God, no!" And I'm just like, "Dude, you got problems. Therapy."
Yeah, it's there are definitely some. I think it's just a downside to the complexity of some of the terrain sometimes, but I use it to my advantage, very much like in like a Skyrim or other games where like you just kind of like I'll just keep jumping up this 85-degree incline. Like I'll do that often in Death Stranding, like just keep, as long as I got stamina, Sam, just keep jumping.
And that's kind of what I had to do, but it resulted in me falling over on the cargo, which was his dead mother that was strapped to his back, which was honestly kind of hilarious.
At least they can't take any more damage, right? So you're good there.
Well, that's what I was thinking. And then the prompt screen still shows you taking damage to the cargo, and I'm like, what does it matter? They're dead. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm gonna go burn them up.
Yeah, like who cares if there's damage to the cargo? So I've had some dark thoughts playing this game already. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah, it's a fun one. Yeah, I can't wait to you get into the open world. Yeah, it was interesting because I was curious, like if Director's Cut shared servers with the base game, and of course it wouldn't because there's extra modalities in Director's Cut that there aren't in the first game, so they can't do it that way. So it's separate servers. So I'm curious, and you said like you haven't noticed much repopulating when you bring an area back onto the chiral network. So I'm guessing there aren't that many people who played Director's Cut on PS5.
It's hard to tell. So the last time I logged in, there were a decent amount of ladders everywhere, but it was just ladders specifically. Ladders and ropes.
Yeah, well, that's because that's all you have. And then eventually when you get the bridge and Die Hardman tells you like, hey, Sam, go build, like your objective is to build the bridge. Once you do that, that teaches you about the bridges. So
you can only see things from other people that you already have.
Correct. So like if you go, when you return to that zone after you beat the game, like there's shit all over the place, man. It's like all these advanced traversal options. And so yeah, you can only, that's why you only see ladders. Plus they do put a lot of quote unquote like fake ladders where it's like it's this one porter, but it's a pretend porter that doesn't, it's not a player. It's like a green I forget what their name is. But it's like a Igor, yeah, that's who it is.
Oh, well, those are the only ones I've actually seen so far. So maybe I haven't seen ladders yet.
Igors are just are like the fake AI ones, but yeah, you'll it might take a little longer before it actually shows more player ones, but you'll notice like later on we'll get back to it, especially once you bring
the only ones I've seen so far have been from Igor, so
yeah,
I assumed that was
tutorial essentially.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like it should be obvious when I get other players, so
yeah, usually because like when you bring a network online, like it'll show like, oh, this section of the region is connected to the chiral network. Usually then you'll see like all the signs that are out like populate on the map. And then when you turn around from like the distro center to go back up the ramp, usually you'll see like a bunch of like happy baby signs or have a nice day, like thumbs up signs, like from players who put that there. Or you'll notice like, hey, the area I went to that had BTs, now there's like a BT sign on the ground because a player put it there. Or you might see like something else, but yeah, definitely got to get out of that tutorial section. Go get to the wind farm and then go back.
Go out to the world.
That's right, man. That game looks so good too.
I'm enjoying it so far, though. I like the world a lot. I like the vibe. I love when the camera zooms out and plays some of the sound choices and music choices they've picked for it. It's definitely atmospheric. I just still think that he just needs a better editor or someone to tell him no. Just a few times. Not all the time, just like 15% of the time. He just needs someone telling him no. His ideas are a little too far and they're really good ideas. I just think that with an editor paring some of it down, his games would come across better.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see what happens with Death Stranding 2. But
yeah, but who's going to tell Kojima no?
Exactly.
Well, that's my point. Sony needs to tell him no sometimes.
Yep.
And I understand this is his thing, but
yeah, I like it. Like obviously, yeah, sure, there could be some, but it's an unfiltered, creative thought process that's just kind of crazy. It's always fun.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, unfortunately, got to go ahead and cut it off there. I got some things I got to go do. Hopefully, we'll get some more of your thoughts on Death Stranding next week. Maybe I'll play some more Rebirth. All right. Well, thank you for all tuning in. Listen. Thank you, Isli. Thank you, Sai, for joining.
Yep.
And we'll see you all next time.
Later.
Bye.